My best friend left on a Tuesday in April, 63 days before the firm's biggest deal was set to close. I didn't know, standing at his graveside in a borrowed black jacket, that the two things were connected. I only knew that the man who had believed in me longer than anyone else on earth was gone, and the world felt smaller for it. His name was Edmund Hale. He'd founded the firm 41 years ago out of a single rented office with a cracked window and a second-hand desk. For 11 of those years, I'd been his courier, the man who carried his sensitive documents, drove his sealed envelopes across the city, and kept his filing system in order that lawyers twice his age could never manage on their own. I'm not a lawyer. I never was. I'm Walter Briggs, 67 years old, a man who raised his son alone after his wife passed and needed flexible hours more than prestige. Edmund gave me that. He also gave me something I didn't ask for and didn't fully understand until the morning they cut my badge in half. The lobby of the firm's tower was electric when I walked in that June morning. I had Cal with me, my son, 19, home from his first year of college and riding along the way he used to when he was small, just to spend the time. The receptionist desk was ringed with temporary staff in pressed shirts. Assistants moved through the marble atrium like currents in a fast river, carrying folders and water pitchers and the quiet tension that fills a room before something large and expensive happens. The merger signing was set for 11 o'clock, a $200 million transaction, 3 years in the making, the capstone of Edmund's life's work, handed now to the firm's new managing partner. She saw me at the door to the inner corridor. I had my badge out, the laminated card Edmund had made for me himself, with a small firm seal in the corner. I'd carried it for 11 years. She stopped walking. She looked at me the way people look at something that has wandered into the wrong room. "Is there a delivery?" she asked the receptionist. "Not me. He's the courier, ma'am. Walter Briggs. He's credentialed for. We don't use hand delivery services anymore." She set it to the ceiling, or the air, or some fixed point above my left shoulder. "The firm modernized its document protocols in February. Security, please collect his badge." A young man in a dark vest came around the desk. I held the badge out because there was no reason not to. He produced a pair of scissors from the drawer, as though this were a practice thing, and he cut the laminated card in two, clean across Edmund's little seal, and set both halves on the counter. The lobby was not quiet, but it felt quiet. "I appreciate the years of service," the managing partner said, already turning. "Building security will see you out." Cal was still standing at the revolving door. I could see his face over the receptionist's shoulder. That particular expression a son gets when he is deciding whether to step forward. I caught his eye and gave the smallest shake of my head. He stayed where he was. That was enough. I thanked the young man with the scissors. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Or the way Edmund always said, a man's character is what he does in the moments nobody will credit him for. I walked back through the revolving door. The June heat met me on the sidewalk. Cal fell in beside me without a word, and we found a bench in the parking lot under a young oak that hadn't grown into much shade yet, and we sat. "You all right?" Cal said. After a while. "I'm fine," I told him. And I was, mostly. There is a kind of peace in being seen clearly at last, even when the seeing is unkind. Edmund used to say that. He said a lot of things I only understood later. I had a leather portfolio with me. The one Edmund's secretary had called about 3 weeks after the funeral, asking me to come by and collect some documents Edmund had left in my name. I'd carried it everywhere since, not entirely sure what to do with it. I opened it on my knee, there on the bench, and I read the letter again. Edmund's handwriting was careful and a little shaky at the end, the way it got in his last year. The letter was 4 pages. I won't quote all of it. It was between him and me, the way the best things are, but the center of it was this. 40 years ago, before the firm was anything at all, Edmund had come to me with a problem he couldn't solve through the firm. His sister's family had left him a significant sum in trust, with conditions that the firm's own partners couldn't oversee fairly, given their financial interests. He needed a trustee who had no stake in the outcome, someone he trusted absolutely, someone the firm's leadership would never think to look for. He'd chosen me. He hadn't told me because he knew I'd refuse, and he needed someone who wouldn't perform the role for the recognition. He'd set up the documentation, kept it separate from the firm's files, and left it in the portfolio I now held on my lap. The trust was the vehicle through which the merger's final tranche was to be released. The blind trust the firm had been chasing for 3 years, the piece the new managing partner had called the last puzzle piece. $200 million in assets, held under a trustee's name the firm had never been able to identify, because Edmund had given the documentation to a courier, his name on the cover sheet, my name on the signature line. The portfolio also contained, in a sealed envelope, my instructions. Edmund had anticipated this day, Not the badge being cut specifically, but the principle of it. He knew the new management didn't know me. He knew I would show up and be turned away. He'd written in that careful, shaky hand, "Wait on the bench outside, Walter. They'll come to you." Cal read over my shoulder for a moment, then sat back and looked at the oak tree. He knew, my son said. He always knew, I told him. It was 54 minutes by Cal's watch. Then there were heels on the pavement, quick and a little uneven, the way people walk when they've just learned something that changed the shape of the day. The managing partner came around the corner of the parking structure with two associates behind her, and a look on her face that I recognized. Not shame, exactly, but the early edge of it. The moment just before a person decides what kind of person they're going to be about a hard truth. She stopped a few feet from the bench. "Mr. Briggs," her voice was steady, to her credit. "It appears we owe you an apology and an explanation." "No explanation needed," I said. "I read the documents this morning." She glanced at the portfolio. "The trust cannot be executed without your signature. The signing is in 40 minutes. I know." I stood up. I'm not a tall man, but I was standing. And she was not. And there was a moment where that seemed to matter. "I'll come in and sign. Not because of the deal. Because Edmund asked me to, and he was my friend for 30 years, and that's reason enough." One of the associates had a spare visitor badge. I didn't need it, but I clipped it on. Cal walked beside me, and I thought about his mother, who never got to see what kind of man he was becoming, and about Edmund, who had seen it and told me every chance he got. There are men who stand beside you when you're nobody in particular, and a bench in a parking lot is the best seat available, and I have been lucky enough to know a few. The signing took 20 minutes. I read everything carefully, the way Edmund taught me. "Never sign what you haven't understood," he said, "even when the room is impatient." The managing partner waited. The associates waited. When I set down the pen, the room did not erupt. It went quiet in that particular way. Rooms go quiet when something large and overdue is finally settled. I shook hands with the associates. I nodded to the managing partner. I did not need her to say anything, and she seemed to sense that. Cal and I walked back out through the lobby and into the June heat and got in the old truck I'd driven for 11 years. On that route, the one Edmund used to say had more character than most of the cars in the firm's parking garage. I drove. Cal was quiet for a little while, and then he said, "He set all that up for you. He set it up so the right thing could happen," I said. "I happened to be the right person." "Same thing," Cal said. "I thought about that for a while. Maybe it is." Edmund Hale left on a Tuesday in April. He left a lot of things behind. A firm, a legacy, a $200 million trust that needed a signature from a man with a laminated badge, and a bench in a parking lot, and a son who came along for the ride. He left me the letter, which I'll keep, and he left me the knowledge, which I already had, that a man's worth is not the badge they hand him or the one they cut in half. It is the thing he does quietly, for no credit, for the 30 years before anyone thinks to look.